Welcome back everyone to the next video in our ThinkorSwim tutorial series, where today we're going to be learning how to use the active trader tool within ThinkorSwim. Now, for those of you more active traders out there watching, this video might be of special interest to you, especially considering that the active trader tool is probably the fastest way to place trades within this platform. But if you've never seen it before, there are a few different ways to access it. The first way being, if we're on our charts page or we have a nice big chart open, looking over here on the far right-hand side, you're going to see a lot of different buttons over here. And the one we want to find and click on is the one called Active Trader. You'll see as soon as I clicked on that, I had a nice big window open up over here, which probably looks a little bit crazy. But if we look here, this bottom section with all the numbers and the flashing prices right here, this is what's called the DOM. Later on, this is where we can place limit orders or stop orders at specific prices. But if we focus on the top portion of this tool for a second, these little buttons up here are how we can place market orders. So beginning with the first button in the upper left-hand corner, some of these kind of speak for themselves, but the buy market button is going to immediately place a market order to buy however many amount of shares we've got in this quantity box. So right now, because I've got 40 quantity in this little box here, if I was to hit buy market, I'm going to immediately buy 40 shares at the market price. If I instead wanted to trade 20 shares, I could always just highlight this, type in 20, or I could also use these pre-filled buttons here on the right if I wanted to quickly taper up how many shares I'm trading, maybe 300, 500, 1,000. But this is where we can set how many shares we're trading anytime we click on any of these buttons. You'll also notice that because I don't have this auto send button checkmarked, if I were to actually click on buy market right now, you're going to see a little order confirmation appear at the bottom of the screen. So this right here is just verifying that I do in fact want to buy 100 shares, which to actually place it, I would need to come down here and hit send again. Let's say I actually wanted to do this, so I'm going to go ahead and hit send here, and you can see that that trade filled instantaneously. So looking up here now in the account information section, you can see I currently have 100 shares. So this right here says I'm long 100 shares. The average price tells me what price I own these 100 shares at. So currently I hold them at $232.96. And we can see the next box over where it says P&L open -$6. This is how much I'm down on these 100 shares. The box just to the right of it, the one that says P&L day, this is how much I'm down across the board on this stock today. So I know they're the exact same number right now, but that's because I've only got 100 shares and I've only traded Apple once today. But later on, if I was to trade Apple again, this is going to reflect all the trades across Apple today. That'll make a little more sense here in a minute once we place a few more trades. But moving back up to the buttons for a second, the sell market button would be if I wanted to sell those shares immediately. So let's say we wanted to do that. We'll go ahead and hit sell market again. We can see the order confirmation at the bottom, just verifying this is in fact what I wanted to do, sell 100 shares at the market price. Since it is, we'll go ahead and come down below and hit send. And now looking up above, we can see that I am flat now. I've got 0 shares of the stock. This little column here, I didn't mention it before, but this tells you how many shares have been bought today versus sold today. So we bought 100 shares of Apple earlier, and then we sold them. And now looking over here at the P&L day for Apple today, I've made 29 bucks so far. But let's just say we want to do that again. And this time what I'm going to do is check mark this auto send box, and that's going to get rid of those order confirmations. So now if I were to click buy market or sell market, those trades are going to happen instantaneously. So we'll again come over here and hit buy market. And this time you can see I immediately bought 100 shares, which I now own at $233.15. Currently on those 100 shares, I'm up $6. And I know it's fluctuating constantly as the stock price moves, but in total for the day on Apple, I'm up $33. Now, if I wanted to close that, we'll just come up here and hit sell market. And now I'm back to flat. If you instead wanted to short the stock, there's not a special button up here. All you have to do is hit sell market or sell shares that you don't own, and it's automatically going to be a short position. So right now, if we wanted to short 100 shares of Apple, if I hit sell market, you can now see I'm short 100 shares. It says -100 right here. You can see we shorted it at $233.29. I'm currently down $6.40. Now I'm up $2. And for the day in total, I'm up $47, now $51 on Apple. To close it, we're going to come up here above, and because we're short, we need to close it by buying those shares back. So we're going to come up here and hit buy market. And again, now I'm back to 0 shares. Looking at the other buttons up here where it says cancel, reverse, and flatten, the cancel button is going to cancel any working orders on Apple that you have right now. So if later on we place an open order to buy 100 shares of Apple, if it ever dropped to $200 a share and I wanted to cancel that, if I hit cancel, it'll cancel all my working orders. If we were currently in a position and I wanted to flip that position around, so let's say I'm currently long 100 shares of Apple, but I think it's going to reverse and start trending downwards, instead of selling those 100 shares and then shorting another 100 on top of it, I could actually just hit reverse. So looking at that in practice, let's come over here and buy 100 shares. And we can see that down below in our account info section. But if I now come up here and hit reverse, you can now see we're short 100 shares of Apple. If we come up and hit reverse again, now we're long 100 shares. So all that's going to do is flip your position around. Whatever you have, it's going to close that out and then do the exact opposite. Now, the flatten button, this one I actually see you guys using fairly often, but unfortunately, because we're in on-demand, remember the paper money version of ThinkorSwim, this button doesn't work quite right in here. But if we were in the real account, if I was to click this right now, what it's going to do is cancel any working orders I have on this stock, and it's going to sell it with a market order. So right now, because I've got 100 shares of Apple in this account, if I was to hit flatten, it's going to sell those 100 shares. If I was short 50 shares and I were to hit flatten, it's going to immediately buy back those 50 shares. So again, whatever you have, if you were to hit flatten, it's going to get you to 0. It's going to completely close out the position and cancel any working orders that you have. Besides those ones, we already discussed these buttons down here, the quantity buttons to quickly change how many shares we're trading anytime we click on these buy or sell buttons. We've also got the template over here, which I'm going to save for later, but this is how we can create conditional orders. So think of it like us saying, instead of just buying Apple right now, I also want to automatically put out a profit-taking order 10% above and a stop-loss order 5% below. These templates right here are how we could do that, how we could add conditions to our trades or create additional orders that only activate once previous trades are filled. But that can certainly be confusing, so we'll go ahead and save that for a little bit later. And now that we've covered all these buttons up here, if we now look down below at the actual ladder itself, or the DOM, or depth of market right here, this little pricing ladder is how we can place limit orders or stop orders. Now, the very first thing you're going to notice is that the current price is highlighted in gray. And because this is changing constantly, I'm actually going to come up here above to the upper right and hit the pause icon. Of course, if this was a real account, you wouldn't actually be able to do that. You can't pause the market anytime you want. But now looking down here below, we can see the current price for Apple is $233.67. And within this tool, anytime we want to buy the stock or sell the stock, all we have to do is either click to the left or the right. So in our case, because we already have 100 shares of Apple in this account, let's say I wanted to sell it if it ever went up to $233.80 a share. So looking right here, we can see that price, $233.80. And if I wanted to sell it, I just move my mouse to the right to the red column. And right here, I would just simply click in that box. Because we have auto send turned on, that also applies to the ladder down here. So as soon as I clicked on that red box, a limit order was placed to sell it if it ever hits $233.80. And we can also see that over here on our chart on the left-hand side. If we were to hover our mouse over it, it'll tell me, hey, this is an order to sell 100 if it ever hits $233.80. And then later on, if I wanted to edit it, I could either do it from the chart by simply dragging it up or down to the new price I wanted to move it to. So in this case, if I wanted to move it all the way up to 240, I could go ahead and drag it up there and let go. Or if I wanted to cancel it, I would simply hit the little X on the right-hand side. In the event that I wanted to buy additional shares of Apple, if it fell down to, let's say, $233.57, if I find the price right here, because I want to buy it, I'm going to come over here to the left and click on the little green box. I'm now saying if Apple ever drops to $233.57, buy me 100 shares. Just like before, I could always edit that by simply dragging it up and moving it to the new price I wanted to adjust it to, or hit the X button to cancel it. If I instead wanted to place a stop on my 100 shares, because remember, I do still have 100 shares of Apple right now, instead of looking above the current price, if I come down below the current price, you'll actually see that the order type flipped by default. It flipped over from a limit order now to a stop order. So this tool kind of knows what type of order makes the most sense depending on what price you're selecting. We can always override that and say, no, I specifically want this to be a limit order. But honestly, for the most part, this picks the order type that makes the most sense. So in this case, if we wanted to place our stop down here at 233.50, I'm simply going to click in the red box. And now I'm saying if Apple ever falls below 233.50, go ahead and stop me out. But I think with a little bit of practice, you'll get the hang of that pretty quick. You simply find the price you want to buy or sell for, and then either click on the left if you want to buy it, or click on the right if you want to sell it. But besides the actual placing of the orders, I'm sure you guys have some questions about what these numbers represent. So over here where it says 4, 1, 2, or on the right here on the sell side where it says 1, 1, 2, this is actually just your level 2 data. So these are going to be the other open orders out there to buy or sell Apple right now. So looking over here on the left-hand side, this is an open order to buy 400 shares of Apple at 233.66. This is an open order to buy 100 shares at 233.65. An open order to buy 200 shares at 233.64. And then looking over here on the right-hand side, these are open sell orders. So somebody's trying to sell 200 shares at 233.70, 200 shares at 233.71. And you'll see that if I were to play this again, if we were to turn on the market simulated data again, these values are going to be changing constantly. But that's all that it's telling you. Open orders to buy and sell the stock right now. Now, while we're here, I'm also going to mention to you that you can edit these buttons up here or replace them with ones that you're actually going to use. So if you ever want to edit these, if we come up here to the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner, this will first show us on the right all the buttons that we're currently using and where they're placed. And then over here on the left are all the buttons that we could add. So one thing a lot of you guys might want to add is this TIF button. So if we go ahead and click on it, hit Add Item. If we come down and hit OK in the lower right-hand corner, you're going to see that new TIF or Time in Force button right here, which is currently set today. Now, if you're using the market order buttons up here at the top, you will want to leave this set today. But if you're now trading in the pre or post market and you want to place limit orders using the little ladder down here below, in order for these orders to be good in the pre and post market, you'll need to change this over from a day order to an EXT order. Or if you want your orders to go out every single day until they fill, you might want to change this to good until canceled, or good until canceled including the pre and post market. But definitely come up here and take a look at those other buttons that you may or may not find useful and customize this to your liking. The other thing that you can change if we come back down here and hit OK is changing these columns up here where it says volume, buy orders, bid size, price. We can actually edit these by hitting the gear icon up here in the upper right and saying customize. Now, personally, I actually like all of these that are over here, but one additional one that I personally find useful is this P&L open column. So if we were to click on that and add it to our list on the right, you can now see, once I've added that, this new column over here on the right simply shows us how much we're going to be up or down if the stock actually goes to that price. So because I currently have 100 shares of Apple in this account right now, if Apple were to go up to $233.82, I'm going to be up $47. If it were to fall, and it were to fall to $232.91, I'm going to be down $44. So this can be especially useful if you're trying to keep track of how much you're going to be up or down at various prices. Just a nice little thing to add. Now, finally, the very last thing we're going to touch on, we go ahead and flip this back today, is how this template works up here. So at the moment, with single selected, that simply means I only want one thing to happen. When I hit buy market, I just want to buy 100 shares. When I hit sell market, I just want to sell 100 shares. But if we instead wanted other orders to go out there besides the opening trade, what I could do is flip this template over, and the one I'm going to use for this example is trigger with bracket. Now, with that selected, you're still going to have the first trade, the opening order, to either buy or short the stock. It's then saying, after that order fills, I then want these two orders to be submitted. The first one right here is in order to sell 100 shares, $1 above where I buy it for. The second order is to stop me out $1 below whatever I buy it for. But I could always adjust these. I could type in my own offsets. I could change this from $1 to, let's say, 50 cents. And for the profit taking order on the top, instead of using a dollar offset, I could actually click this little icon here and make it a percentage amount. And I could say I want to sell it for 10% above what I buy it for. So now if I come up here and hit the buy market button, I'm not just buying 100 shares at the market price. I'm also saying I want to automatically sell it for a 10% profit or stop myself out at a 50-cent loss. I could also use the limit order down here below if I didn't want to buy those shares immediately, but actually had a profit target, or a specific target in mind. So I could come down here and say, hey, I want to buy it if it ever drops down to 232.74, and then I want those 2 orders to be submitted. But in my case, I will just use a market order for this example. So it does fill immediately. And you'll see I immediately bought another 100 shares of Apple stock. So now I've got 200 shares in total. And now looking over here on the left, I've got my stop. It looks like 50 cents below. And I've got my profit taking order 10% above. But definitely practice with this tool quite a bit before you ever think of using it in your real account, because it is incredibly fast and people are prone to make mistakes very, very easily. So either hop into on demand in your live account or hop over to the paper money version and practice with this as much as you possibly can, especially if you're a day trader or scalper. This is going to be especially useful for you. But hopefully that helps, and for those of you looking to learn more, stick around for the next video in the series where we're going to learn how to create advanced scanners within ThinkorSwim. So these will be scanners based on study crossovers or conditions that you think of that are maybe a little more complicated than simple stock parameters. Go ahead and click the video below to check that out, and I'll see you there.